Welcome back, guys. This is the Mushroom Wizard, and today I am going to be doing a presentation here on the Boletes of Saskatchewan. I'm not sure if that's how you say Boletes. It could be Boletes. I don't know, because I don't speak whatever language that stems from. So, let's just get right into it. What are Boletes? Boletes are a terrestrial mushroom, and that's important because there are other pored mushrooms that are not terrestrial, but it's a terrestrial mushroom that releases spores through a series of tubes that form a porous underside beneath the cap. It looks very much like a sponge. These are almost always mycorrhizal in ecology. There is one exception that we'll talk about today. They're very common in Saskatchewan, and this is an excellent group of mushrooms for beginners to focus on. And the reason for that is because it's easy to tell if a mushroom doesn't have gills, if it has pores, right? However, there is no dangerously toxic boletes in Saskatchewan. So, having said that, there are many dangerous gilled mushrooms. So mistaking one gilled mushroom for another gilled mushroom could be very problematic for you. Mistaking one bolete for another bolete really won't be. So let's take a look at the genre that we're going to be looking at here. Boletus, Chalciparis, Lacinum, and we will be looking at Tylopilus as well, even though there's only one species that is unpalatable. It's not toxic, but it's extremely bitter. The first one we're going to start with here is the most common, and that's the red cap boletes, or the orange cap boletes, or scaber stalk boletes. They have a lot of common names here because they're one of the most commonly picked mushrooms, especially for people who are just in it to pick one or two species. Red caps tend to be a favorite among people in Saskatchewan that are picking mushrooms. And this is actually at least 3 separate species. So to break them down, the aspen bolete, Lacinum insigne, is on the left there. The orange birch bolete in the middle is Lacinum versipelle. And the orange oak bolete, Lacinum aurantiacum, is on the right. And you really can't tell the difference between them by looking at macroscopic features, with the exception of the ways in which they bruise when damaged. Starting off with the cap, all of these have a range of colors that is reddish brown to orange, reddish orange, orange. Some of them are more often reddish brown, and that would be Lacinum insigne. Lacinum aurantiacum tends to go more towards the orange, and Lacinum versipelle is usually orange. These are convex mushrooms, so if you remember, that means they have a rounded top, and they flatten out with age. So they become flat when they're old. The cuticle is smooth and peels away from the cap easily. So the cuticle, if you remember, is just the covering on the cap itself. And if you run your fingers across it, there should be no real anything that you notice, no scales or anything like that. The cuticle on the margin overhangs the pores by up to an inch. So I'm going to show that to you when we get to the section on the pores themselves. And this only occurs in Lacinum versipelle, so this is one way in which to tell which of the mushrooms you are holding. The margin is smooth, so nothing really noticeable about the margin. Spongy with age. So what that means is that as this mushroom grows older and grows bigger, it becomes almost like a water-soaked sponge. In fact, it absorbs water, and it becomes quite gross. Usually you'd want to pick these mushrooms when they're young. And they get quite big, up to 7 inches in diameter. So as you can imagine, that's a very large mushroom. But again, you'd be picking these when they're younger. So here are some size references. There's a fully grown one on the left with a pocket knife for a size reference. It's been cut in half there, so you can actually see the tubes going down, and then they end in this porous surface. And then on the right, that is the size at which you would want to be picking these mushrooms, because they won't be full of insects. Here you can see the pores. So that porous surface is white, then gray or tan with age. The pores themselves are round, and we're going to look at those in a second. This surface is adnate. So that means it just comes across and touches the stipe. It's not really dipping down, though it does begin to dip down a little bit with age. For the most part, it just comes across and touches the stipe there. It has an olive spore print, and here's the first main difference between them. So Lycinum insigne and Lycinum versipelli will stain brown than black if you push your finger into it or damage it or bruise it. If, however, this is Lycinum aurantiacum, it will stain this kind of purplish wine burgundy color for quite a while, and then slowly will turn brown and then black. Here's a close-up of the pores. You can see they're round. On the right, you can see that cuticle overhang of Lycinum versipelli. Now here's the stipe. The stipe is off-white to gray, but it has these raised scaber scales on it. And that's what we call these really densely packed scales that you see on these scaber stalk boletes, or these red cap boletes. This stipe is up to 6 inches high and 2 inches thick, but it's usually shorter than that. It's usually not quite that big, but it can get that big. It is clavate, almost always. Sometimes it's more bulbous. So clavate, if you remember, is more like a club shape. It is solid. It's not hollow. It's solid, and it is fibrous, so you can kind of peel it apart in a longitudinal manner. And it bruises blue-green when damaged in Lycinum aurantiacum and Lycinum versipelli, and it bruises blue in the base for Lycinum insigne. In terms of the ecology, here is the difference as well. Lycinum insigne, which is the aspen bolete, is mycorrhizal with aspen and poplars. Lycinum aurantiacum, if you remember, that is the orange oak bolete, is mycorrhizal with aspen, birch, and oak. Lycinum versipelli is mycorrhizal with birch only. So it doesn't make it completely foolproof, because I mean, if it's at birch, it could be one of two as opposed to one of three, but this is a way in which you can tell a bit better which mushroom you're looking at. They occur spring through fall for all of them. They are found solitary or in small groups. I don't usually see these in huge jostling masses, and they are terrestrial mushrooms. In terms of edibility, these are choice mushrooms. These are excellent, excellent edibles. During the summer months, this is not a good mushroom to be picking, especially if they're fully grown, because they're going to be full of maggots. It's not just choice for people, it's choice for bugs too. However, in the spring and in the fall, where they're also quite common, it's too cool for the insects to be as active as they were in the summer months. So you're going to have more time in which you can pick them, and you'll actually get larger specimens as a result. The mushroom dehydrates well, but not only does it dehydrate well, it actually makes the mushrooms better. They will taste more flavorful if you dehydrate them first and then reconstitute them later on to use in like a risotto or a soup or a pasta sauce. And this is a mushroom that has a high potential for allergies in people. And when I say allergies, I mean it's a unique allergy. If you're allergic to a different mushroom, you may not be allergic to this one. And if you're allergic to this one, you may not be allergic to the other ones. In terms of taste, all three taste really good. The only reason you'd want to maybe know specifically which one you're picking is so that you know which one you're allergic to, if in fact you are allergic to one of them. I'm going to move on now to another Lycinum species. And this is the brown birch bolete, Lycinum scabrum. So much of the information is going to be the same, so this will go a lot quicker here. In terms of the cap, the color is dark brown to brownish gray. as you can see there. It's also got a bit more of a lumpy texture at times, an uneven texture. Everything else should be the same with the exception of the size here. This is a smaller Bolete than the ones we just looked at. It is up to 4 inches in diameter. There you can see a size reference. Someone's holding it in their hand. This is an excellent way for you to get photos of a size reference as well. In terms of the pores, again, everything's pretty similar. These do age into a darker brown, and these are adnexed. The pore surface is adnexed. So you can see there in the photo how it's kind of dipping in towards the stipe. Again, olive spore print. When you damage these ones, they stain gray, as opposed to the kind of wine burgundy or the black that we saw in the red cap Boletes. And with age, the pore surface does something kind of unique to a few of the Licinium species. What it does is it bulges out at the top while becoming constricted and indented around the stipe. So I'm going to show you what that looks like in a few moments here. But that's unique to a few of these Licinium species. Here's a close-up of the pores. Again, rounded. There's the stipe. It is thinner than what we saw with the orange cap Boletes. Again, it's got more of a gray basal color below the scaber scaling, but that scaling is still there. They're up to 4 inches high and 2 inches thick, so a bit smaller than the previous. Clavate, I don't really see bulbous in these, or I haven't yet. They do not bruise when damaged, so there won't be any of that blue or bluish green coloring from the red caps. In terms of the ecology, these are mycorrhizal with only birch trees, so that's where you'll find them. They occur spring through fall. They are found solitary or in small groups, and once again, they are terrestrial. Now, here's a photo of what I was talking about with the pores, where it constricts inwards around the stipe and then pushes the pores upwards, almost facing out, the way you see it. The edibility is okay. They're not the best. But if you find them, they're worth keeping, especially if you haven't found anything else. Once again, bugs love it. The mushroom does dehydrate well, and as with all of the Licinium species, there is a high potential for allergies. This is the last Licinium that we'll be looking at. This is the ghost Bolete. It's light gray to off-white, almost kind of like an ivory white, and it turns brown or tan with age. Everything else is pretty much the same with the last Birch Bolete that we were looking at. The margin does have a bit of an overhang, just kind of like that particular orange cap Bolete did. And this is even smaller than prior. This is up to 3 inches in diameter now, so a little tiny guy. Here's a size reference for you so you can see that it's not a very big mushroom. This becomes white, then gray or brown with age in terms of the porous surface. The pores are round and the porous surface is adnexed. You can clearly see there's a very deep dip, but it's not free from the stipe. It's just dipping down towards the stipe. It has a brown spore print, and if you damage those pores, they will stain brown. So there will be staining in this one. And it does do that same sort of strange formation when it's past maturity that you saw with the brown birch Bolete as well. Close-up of the pores. Here are some photos of the stipe. You can see it's a lighter color. It's like an off-white basal color or a light gray, and the scabers begin white and then they kind of turn black with age. It's up to 4 inches high and 2 inches thick. Clavate, as you can see there, solid, fibrous. This one does bruise. It bruises blue at the base, and it bruises pink elsewhere. You'll see that as well. I'll show you that in a second. This one is mycorrhizal with birch. It occurs summer through to the fall. It is found solitary or in very small groups, and it's terrestrial. It's about as good as the brown birch bolete in terms of edibility. Nothing special, but it's about the equivalent of a button mushroom from the store. During the summer months, once again, this is going to be full of bugs. And if you look at the photo here, you'll notice that staining. There's a cross-sectioned mushroom there. It's been sliced. It's got that pink staining, and it's probably just starting to turn blue at the base. Can't really see that well yet, but you can certainly see the pink. On to the next bolete. So this is the King Porcini. This is the big one. This is the one that everybody's going for. The name Porcini should be familiar to you if you know anything about mushrooms. It's used often in French cooking and in Italian cooking. So it's a very well-regarded mushroom. It's a reddish brown to tan cap color there. It is convex, again flattening out with age, but unlike the last mushrooms in the Leccinum genus, this one does not become fully flat. It's still got kind of like a very broadly convex top. It grows up to 12 inches in diameter. That's a big, big mushroom. The cuticle, when you touch it, is going to be either smooth or slightly wrinkled. You can see it's kind of got a wrinkled appeal to it there, a wrinkled appearance. The cuticle peels easily away and it's kind of sticky to the touch. The margin is smooth, but the margin has a ring of cream coloration around it. So if you look at closely there, the margin is very lightly colored. There's a size reference. That's actually a pretty small one because like I said, they get up to about 12 inches in diameter, size of your head. So looking at the pores, these are off-white to tan in coloration. They turn greenish yellow with age, though with age they're probably full of bugs. It is adnext. You can see how it dips in towards the stipe. Firm when young, becoming spongy with age. That's just something you see with all boletes. And the pores are not round, they're angular. So if you look closely at them, you should see angular pores. No staining, so it doesn't turn blue or wine burgundy or anything like that. And it has an olive brown spore print. Those are those pores. You can see they're not round, they're more of a honeycomb shape. And there's that spore print. That's what you would be looking for if you decided to do a print on this one. The stipe. Now the stipe has a telltale reticulate pattern on the top half, and it's over top of this kind of dark brownish, light brown sort of background color. And a reticulate pattern, again, that's a net sort of pattern. And the bottom half becomes cream or white even, as you can see in this one here. It has several shapes that it can take on. It can be fusiform, which is where it's thickest in the center and then tapering on both ends. It can be clavate, which is what you see here, kind of like a club shape. Or it can be bulbous. It can be more equal and then more of a bulb at the end. And again, it's a very big stipe. It's up to 10 inches high and up to 3 inches thick. The ecology of this mushroom is much more broad than the other boletes we've looked at so far. It is mycorrhizal with conifers and with oak trees. So that's a good portion of Saskatchewan right there. They occur midsummer through to fall. They occur solitary or scattered. They are often found near another mushroom called the fly agaric or Amanita muscaria. And that's the red one with the white spots. And this is a terrestrial mushroom, obviously. As you can see, it's on the ground. The edibility is choice. This is a mushroom that is eaten the world over. It is excellent in any dish. It's really good for dehydrating. It actually makes, again, the flavor stronger. And it's also good for pickling. This one, however, does come with a bit of a warning attached to it. It bioaccumulates heavy metals. So what that means is that if there was mercury in the ground and you were to pick this mushroom and test the levels of mercury, the levels in the mushroom would be significantly higher than in the ground. So don't pick this out of the parking lots of factories, I guess. What else can you say? Here's a lookalike. So this is not a toxic lookalike. This is one of the few lookalikes I'm going to include for a mushroom species that is just simply gross. So it won't kill you, but Tylopilus phallius will make your face squint. It tastes like vomit. And I've done taste tests before just to see which one I have, and I have accidentally, put this one in my mouth. It's really horrible. And you'll have to look up the two if you want to tell the difference between them. We won't have time to look at that right now. So the pepper bolete will be the last bolete we'll talk about today. That's Chalciparis piperatus. Rusty brown to reddish orange to tan in color. It's quite pretty. You can see there's a bit of yellow there too. It's convex, flattening out with age. It's got a smooth margin that becomes wavy later on when it flattens out. And this is a kind of a sticky cuticle. Smooth other than that, but it is sticky when you touch it. And it's up to 2 inches across, so it's a very small mushroom. You can see the size reference there. There's a nickel on the right, and there's just a couple in somebody's hand there. I've picked these quite often up at Emma Lake. I enjoy them. They are cinnamon red in color when you look at the pores. They bruise darker brown when you bruise them or damage them. And the pores are very large and angular. This is an adnate porous surface. You can see it's not dipping in. And the spore print, again, it's cinnamon brown. Close up on the pores there, you can see how angular they are. And there's a spore print for you. And the stipe is quite different from the other boletes. It's a yellowish red cylindrical stipe. So it's of equal width the full way down. It's quite high for such a small cap. It's 3 inches high, and that cap, you remember, is only 2 inches. It is tough and fibrous, and you can see those longitudinal grooves that indicate that this is a fibrous stipe that you could probably pull apart almost like string cheese. It has a central attachment to the cap, and you can see it's curved there. That's quite often how it looks, curved or kind of winding almost, or spiraling. The ecology is unique on this one. It was believed to be mycorrhizal. Now it is known to be parasitic. And it's parasitic, again, on the fly agaric mushroom, Amanita muscaria. And it was thought to just simply have the same mycorrhizal associations as Amanita muscaria, but now it's known to actually attack the mycelium of the fly agaric mushroom. As a result, it is terrestrial. It is found solitary or scattered, and then it's found spring through fall. I usually find them kind of early summer. Edibility is good. That's subjective. I think their choice, but I like spicy food. It has a very peppery taste, almost like eating like curry or a spicy pepper, kind of, if you could combine those two. It's good for dehydrating. And that's often how it is used in parts of Asia and places like India, where they dehydrate the mushroom and then they powder it and they use it as a condiment to make things spicier. And it works very well. It's good for beginner mushroom pickers, as are all of these. Once again, it's very hard to mistake this for anything else. And that is everything. Thank you, and I hope you tune in again for our next one.